Hey guys, it's your girl. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brittany, and sometimes I like to do makeup. Weekly, I tell scary stories while doing makeup. For today, I am covering the Berkshire UFO sightings. So it was September 1st, 1969, and there were actually a few people that had this encounter with this UFO. A group of people, which included children, all reported to experience what they can only explain as a unidentified flying object. And it was in the surrounding towns of the Berkshire Mountains. So the main counties that actually encountered anything or had people that encountered anything was in the towns of Great Barrington and Sheffield. I think I'm saying that correctly. Probably not. So this man, under the name of Tom Reed, and his little brother, along with his mother and grandmother, were all out and about on the day of September 1st, 1969. This actually wasn't the first time that the brothers had encountered any alien phenomenon slash UFOs. This actually, after doing some digging, was the third time. But the first two times they actually encountered UFOs by themselves, just them two. The first time the brothers actually encountered any sort of paranormal phenomenon pretty much was going to be in 1966. Him and his brother were out and about and they saw a spacecraft, what they described as a spacecraft, on the ground, and to them they said it looked like a turtle shell. A year later, in 1967, they encountered the same tortoiseshell looking spaceship. Again, they thought it was the same spaceship that they saw the first time. After that second encounter, it wasn't until 1969 that they had their encounter that involved Tom, his brother Matt, and his grandmother and mother. They were out after dinner and they were coming home. It was around 9 o'clock in the evening. It was admittedly a pretty late night. And they were about to go into this covered bridge when all of a sudden the car had a blinding light suddenly beam into it. And after what seemed like probably a second, they woke up in their car a mile from when they last remembered, so from the covered bridge. Not only that, but their grandmother was now in the driver's seat when originally she was in the passenger seat. The mother was driving. The grandmother is now in the driver's seat, and the mother is in the passenger seat. Normally, I guess it's kind of like not a big deal, but the grandmother never learned how to drive. The fact that she was in the driver's seat was evidence enough to him that, hey, something weird really happened. Also, it was probably someone's first day on the job. They probably got everyone mixed up. Not only were they a mile away from where they last remember they were at, 3 hours had also passed. So the ship that they saw that night didn't look like the two other encounters, or didn't look like the ships that they had encountered previously, those two other times. This one that they reported took them was shaped more like a Hershey kiss. Now, at first I did want to point out that I was a bit skeptical because, anyone can make up stories, but this Tom Reed guy has retold this story so many times, and each time it's been consistent to what he's been telling. There hasn't been any change of the story whatsoever. No add-ons, no take-backs or anything. It's been consistent for 51 years. 51 years later, he still feels the anxiety that he felt that night. It's just like an uneasiness that he could never shake off. This poor man has lived with the anxiety of possibly getting abducted again, which he has reported hasn't happened since then, but he has had other encounters, and he feels as if they're watching him. His brother Matt, on the other hand, had his last recent abduction back in 2009, and that was the last time that they abducted him. I actually didn't see if it was the same ship or the same alien. The research I did, it didn't have too many details about that. So the Reed family weren't the only family or people to encounter aliens or spaceships that day. We have a man under the name of Tom Warner, Jane Green, and Melanie Kirchdorfer were also abducted that night, all of them experiencing the same 3-hour lapse. Tom Warner was also a child when he got abducted, and he states that he was at a friend's house and they were playing outside when all of a sudden he sees this beam of light shine on him. He tries to run away and he can't. He's not moving. He's running in place. And then suddenly he disappears. He's gone. He states that his friend told him to run, and that's when he did start running away from this beam of light. And then that's when he noticed that he wasn't able to run away. He was just jogging in place. Melanie Kirchdorfer was actually out with her family getting ice cream. After they got their ice cream, they got situated, they actually went to Lake Mansfield. There, after being there a while, she saw a bright light out on the distance that just kept getting closer and closer. Suddenly, she noticed that she started levitating, and as the light got brighter and brighter, she started noticing that she was levitating up into a spaceship. She saw other children, most likely the Green family, Matt and Tom Green, along with Tom Warner. She said that they were laying the children out on tables. Eerily, Tom Warner said that he recalled seeing Melanie crouching down in the corner. What's so eerie about this is that they had never met previously before. They were from different counties. When they reconnected years later, they automatically felt like a connection. It wasn't just like oh, I don't know you, and then remembered. It was automatic. So while all that is happening, this lady by the name of Jane Green was driving back to Berkshire County with her friend, and she recalls that in the middle of the highway, she saw this big bright light in the distance. Her and her friend both saw this light. They explained it as a strangely silent, unidentified flying object. It made no noise, and it kind of, spooked them out. They described it as like a flying saucer shape hovering over the freeway. On the Netflix show Unsolved Mysteries, Jane said that ever since that night, she was never really the same. She lost friends, she lost her boyfriend. At first, people did kind of believe her, but after a while of her really not letting it go, she kind of felt like she was like an outcast. That not only happened to her, but it also does happen to Tom Reed, Tom Warner, and Matt Reed. Which is weird because this isn't the first time that UFOs have affected the Berkshire County. Actually, it's been reported that for years this has been happening, like way back to before the settlers. So, meaning when there were still Native American tribes that lived there. Pretty much Berkshire County has always had a high UFO sighting rate. So it really wasn't anything new. But I believe this was the first time that anyone has ever been abducted. So contrary to what actually Unsolved Mysteries reported, people actually widely accepted what happened that day, mainly because there was such a huge volume of UFO sightings. Obviously, you're going to have some people that don't believe you when stuff like that happen, but again, because there was so much, so many stories from even before these encounters, people didn't really actually automatically shun them. If anything, they probably got annoyed. So on the day of September 1st, 1969, there were a lot more witnesses that orally reported seeing strange lights in the sky. But nobody called the police or any authorities to report strange incidences. There were actually 0 reports of that night that people were seeing anything strange. So these reports of, yes, we've seen UFOs before, were strictly just like oral like reports. No one ever decided to bring that up to the authorities, because like at the same time, what are they gonna do? What exactly are they gonna do? Call it in and then try to shoot it down? Understandably, nobody really reported it. Instead, people took to actually reporting it to the radio station. Not even the news station, the radio station. Which, I mean, I get it, again, at the time, what did they think they could do? There's nothing you can do against aliens. You can't do anything. Now, even though countless of people actually reported it to the radio station, there actually isn't any saved tapes of the recordings, pretty much, of that day. Which is strange, because usually radio stations, they record and they keep everything. I guess, like, to kind of do like throwbacks of previous conversations. So since people didn't have record of this through the police or now the radio station, there's really nothing to fall back on now other than the oral retellings of just the local people. But because so many people swear by seeing this UFO like it actually happened, it actually went down in Berkshire history. So besides the skeptics, besides not having any evidence whatsoever that this even took place other than people's stories, so no recorded, no written evidence, the Great Barrington Historical Society and Museum still felt that it was credible and saw it fit to induct Tom Reed and the Reed family stories into the museum archives. This declared their accounts to be held true as actual history by actual professional historians. So if you go to that museum, you'll see that it is part of their history, making this the first actual UFO encounter that is considered historical. There was also a historical marker that was erected in the site where the Reed family was abducted. So that covered bridge actually has a historical marker that was paid by private investors, so no, not by the actual government, as a memoriam of the people that experienced something on that fateful day. So like I said earlier, even though there was nothing reported to the police department, the sheriff at the time actually did conduct a private investigation of his own and took people's accounts, trying to see what exactly happened the day of the Berkshire UFO incident. This is actually told to be true by his son, who experienced that he was doing that while he wasn't on the job. His son did try to dig up any of the notes that his father may have taken, but he did want to state that his father technically really didn't take the claim seriously. So his private investigation didn't really have any real evidence because he wasn't taking it seriously. Tom Reed and his brothers still talk about it. They talk about it a lot on radio stations. They actually did an interview with Marie Claire, Men's Health, and of course for Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. But they also do, well, at least Tom Reed does, conventions with MUFON. If you don't know what MUFON is, y'all should really look into it. It's pretty interesting to get into, and it's mainly just a bunch of people who have had UFO experiences and alien encounters, and they have conventions. Actually, surprisingly, one of the band members from Blink-182 is actually in it, and he's a big supporter of the UFO community and obviously a big believer of aliens, like myself. So I just want to say thank you for all the support. I actually got a lot of support from my friends and friends of friends saying that they really like the content. If you have any submissions, if you have your own personal stories, I would love to tell them. If you like what I do, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like. I don't have an outro yet, so